Today, we're talking to one of the key players in my holistic healing journey. She is one of my best friends, and she is the one who taught me, and most importantly, held me accountable to rewiring my brain. In this episode, we talk about things that will make your life less stressful as a busy nurse, caregiver, healthcare professional that works so well for her as a mom to four. We talk about cold plunging and the benefits, and the most important thing we hit on is identity. Who we are affects everything. How does this play a part in you being a nurse or a caregiver or your job? Zanna Foley is a real-life friend, mom to four, wife, and kingdom sister. She is a connector, encourager, and coach of holistic living, and particularly through health, nutrition, and wellness therapies. She helps others live life fully with purpose, vitality, and freedom. I know you're going to love this conversation, so let's get into it. Hey mama, are you overwhelmed by your full, blessed life? Do you feel stuck in the messy, mundane middle? Then I'm so glad you're here to take a breath. Hey, I'm Shan Wright, RN, holistic wellness coach, and a mom to four that went from perfectionism, control, and lots of anxiety to intentionally living through simple solutions and so much peace. If you are done with the stressed out life, hot mess express type of motherhood, then heat up that coffee again and let's live holistically well in the middle. Let's go. Okay, I am excited to share another testimony. I have one of my best friends here, Zanna Foley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Shan. Happy to be here.
So excited. It's going to be a little weird since we don't usually talk with mics. We're going to just dig into your story and what God has been doing in your life. Obviously, there's a lot. But I know that you're going to bring out things that will really help these moms that are listening pursue wellness holistically as you have. Let's just start by sharing a little bit about your family, kids, husband, that sort of thing. Also, share with us two things that are making life a little less stressful right now.
Well, I am a mom of four. We are a blended family. So we have a 19-year-old who's in college. She's at Ole Miss. That is my stepdaughter. And then we have my son from a previous marriage. He is a junior in high school. And then we have a sophomore in high school, my other stepdaughter. And then we have one together who is 6, soon to be 7. My husband and I have been married since 2013, and we're a crazy bunch. Two things that have been making my life more, did you say simple?
Less stressful.
Less stressful. Okay, less stressful.
You can say simple.
I would say the first is Sabbathing regularly. We have been trying to take our Sundays to just Sabbath as a family. For us, that just means not having a to-do list of work and tasks. We go to church, we feast, we enjoy good food, and just, spend time together as a family. Or sometimes it means spending time together separately because we just need time alone, whatever it is. Like there's no agenda for our Sabbath. Just the agenda is no work. So I would say that's the first thing. Oh, I know, my meal preps.
Okay.
So one thing for our holistic health journey is just being conscious of the food that we put in our body. And I think that in this fast-paced convenience world, it's hard to plan meals, cook them while also running kids, running businesses. It's just so easy to grab convenience foods, which we know are not ideal. So we have been prepping freezer meals that can be dumped into the crock pot. And we have been doing that now since, summer. So 6 months or so. So basically I'll just, get with some friends, or sometimes I do it alone, and I'll prep like 15, 20 meals. And it'll take me 4 hours, but they're all in freezer bags in my freezer. And literally I can pull them out and dump them into my crock pot at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we have a hot dinner ready at 5 or 6 p.m. That has been a game changer.
Yes. When I did it with you, it was so amazing. And those meals lasted us a long time because you're not always needing a full-blown meal depending on who's eating dinner and all sorts of things. Well, I love those. And we as well love to Sabbath. And tend to really Saturday and Sunday kind of do a blended Sabbath and maybe start Saturday evening and run through Sunday evening. And when you have that, it just sets the week up for less stress. There you go. Less stress.
Yeah, it does take some intentionality. And I always just encourage people who are like kind of interested in the Sabbath. People always have questions like, what are the rules? And I'm like, well, that's the point. There are no rules. But I recommend, like, for us, a 24-hour period, I think, is best because it kind of takes me a minute to get into Sabbath mode. It just works best for my spirit to truly get that rest if I have 24 hours. And then I always say it doesn't matter what day, because people get really tripped up on the day. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It give you a Monday if that's what works best for your family. You know, it doesn't really matter. And also the day can move. Right. So like for us, it just works so that everybody knows it's Sunday. But like a lot of times people just have, you know, rotating calendars that are different each week. So choose a different day, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I love that. I did stress a lot about it as a mom with little kids. I was always confused. I want to Sabbath so much, but how do you take care of the kids and Sabbath at the same time? We do little things. Like, obviously you can't not change the baby's diaper, and you can't not feed the baby, but there are things that bring you life that you put off during the week because there's too much to do, quote unquote. And so do those things on your Sabbath. Make sure you're being filled up in the other ways. And like, we don't do dishes. We don't do laundry. Like, don't do the chores and the tasks that you can do other days. They can wait. And you're really resting in what God wants for you out of life. I could have an entire episode about Sabbath, and I probably do, and I probably need to have another one. Okay, let's get into your testimony. I love your story, and I love what God's doing in your life, and I love doing life with you and just hearing constantly what God's doing in your life. Share with the listeners a little bit where he came into your life, and then what he's brought you through to now, why you're doing what you're doing, like your purpose, living out your purpose.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think growing up, I always was curious about God, interested in that, just not a ton of exposure, you know, like went to church and things like that, but just didn't have, really started to need God when I went through a divorce, a very challenging one that lasted a very long time. And, you know, I've always been a very strong, independent, determined kind of self-striver. And that served me, I guess, just fine without God. But, you know, I think there comes a time in some people's lives, I would venture to say most people's lives, where what they're going through is not something that they can self-strive through. You know, maybe it's a tragedy, maybe it's a hardship, maybe it's a number of different things, but you can just come to a point where you're like, I'm not going to be able to like strive or push through this. And that's kind of where the relationship with my ex-husband led me. It was like, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
And so I actually started going to church at that time just for friendship.
That's a bell. That's another bell going off, but not because someone else needs you, because you need you. Yes, mama, if you are a nurse, healthcare provider, caregiver that is always pouring out, you need to fill up. How do you do that? When do you do that? You don't have time, energy, or space in your life to do it. I want to help you find it. I want to help you find more time, more energy, and more joy in your very full life. As a holistic nurse coach, I have been there through burnout. I've learned how to get out. And so now in just 1 hour workshop, I want to help you and show you. You're going to walk away with a fresh, faith-centered view of time, why it's always running out, real strategies to reduce your stress and overwhelm, courageous live coaching right there in the workshop to replace burnout with a bold peace that you can walk away feeling better that night, and encouragement that meets you right where you are. This is not another webinar. This is not just another workshop to hop on and walk away with nothing. This is a moment to pause, realign, and breathe again with God at the center. Plus, I'm giving away over $2,000 in prizes to the registrants. So make sure that you register today, even for that. So whether you can make the date and time or not, please register. It has been rescheduled to June 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a Tuesday night. Hop on and be filled up. I literally just want to help fill your cup up, and we're going to do that. Stop surviving and feeling stuck because you care for everyone else. Start reclaiming your day and care for you in the way that only you can. Go right now to www.theshanwright.com/more time. The link is also in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you there.
Honestly, I was like, how can I meet some friends? And I just met God there. And I kind of felt this piece of, I don't have to do life on my own. I learned that there was a God that loved me, that I could depend on, and that I could unburden some of these hard things that I couldn't carry anymore on my own because they were just weighing so heavily on me. And, I was a single mom to a little baby. He was a 1.5 at the time. But honestly, this relationship was taxing for many years, really up until about maybe a year or two ago. So my son's now 17. So it was a long journey. I learned that I didn't have to do it alone, basically. So that's kind of where my relationship with God started. And I would say interestingly, with each hardship that I've faced since then, my faith has grown. Mm-hmm. I think that when times are good, when life is good, when life is easy, things are going your way, when you can self-strive through them and push yourself in independence, then you don't need God as much. But like the times in my life when things have been hard, those are the times that have strengthened my faith. So I remarried, and my husband and I lost a baby in 2016. And it was, late in the pregnancy, which was pretty traumatic. And that was, I would call like another catalyst in my faith. Even though I was already, walking with the Lord at that time, that was a huge catalyst for me, and then we've had several other things since then that have been faith strengtheners. So all the while, I guess, realizing that the hard things that we face are actually the things that bring us closer to God, and He uses those things.
Yeah, I love that. Something that came to mind is what our pastor spoke about yesterday, which was humility. And I don't know the reference, but it's Sermon on the Mount. And blessed are those that recognize their need for Him. When we can humble ourselves and realize that there's sin in our lives, which is pride, and put that down and say, God, I need you. I can't go through this hard thing alone. I need you. We're blessed in that. And blessing means that God's close to us, that we're with Him. So, and then your faith grew each time you went through a hard thing, which God says, my favorite verse, Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous, take courage because I'm with you. So each time you're going to grow in faith, you're going to grow in your relationship with God because you're taking that courage and you're recognizing that He's with you through it, and you're fighting that hard thing with Him. You're not doing it alone. So I love your testimony. I want to point out what you're doing. Obviously, our whole testimony is who we're becoming, and all of life is who we're becoming. But we do things in life for our purpose and what God's designed us for, and to bring Him glory. Our ultimate purpose is to bring Him glory with our lives. And we actually have to work and have jobs and do these things, but those are also a way to live out our purpose. And so I want to talk about what you're doing in life to live out your purpose and these unique characteristics that God has put inside of you, identity that He's put inside of you, has led you to doing things and jobs and businesses. So share with us what you're doing now.
Well, I went to school to be a teacher. So I was a high school Spanish educator for 3 years. And then I started having kids. So I had my oldest, and then I wanted to stay at home with him because I was able to do that at the time. But then, of course, when I went through a divorce, I had to pivot and work again. And I did not want to go to school and teach because I realized I was going to just be spending my days with other people's children. And so I was looking for something more flexible. And I did have a passion for working out. So I decided to get certified as a personal trainer. That was something that I enjoyed, but I actually needed to supplement that income even more. So then I picked up nutrition. I partnered at the time with a nutrition company and was able to, support people in their supplement needs alongside the personal training, which was a great fit. Then I pivoted to a different company, which actually provided a greater income than the one prior. And so I didn't train anymore at that point. I really just, honed in on the nutrition side and helping people with supplementation and, better food choices. About a year ago, my husband and I started cold plunging and fell in love with this idea of contrast therapy, what it can do for physical and mental health benefits. My husband lost 30 pounds in 3 months doing that. I had like a complete mental health transformation. And we decided to open up our own business and partnered with a franchise called Sweat House. And we are just getting ready to open our first location here locally in May. So right now our focus has been on Sweat House and growing that business while I still do work in the nutrition field, helping people with supplementation as well. So I would say, there's a lot of things in the wellness and fitness industry that kind of fit, my skill sets and my interests, but we're honing in on the cold plunging right now for the time being.
Cold plunging. This is one of the reasons I invited you on, because you do hard things. Your courage muscles are really big, as we just heard, like different, like each step of those is a step of courage. I mean, not all the other baby steps too in between there, but your courage muscles are really big. And now you're literally helping people do hard things as a job. You're helping them get into that cold tub. It is not easy. So let's talk about doing hard things. Why is that important? And there's a whole hormesis, like a whole realm of wellness that focuses on this. Why is doing this important?
Well, I love doing hard things. So for me, and again, you talk about like the muscles. I can't remember a time really where I didn't do hard things. I gained 20 pounds when I was 16 and I didn't play sports. So I had to learn to work out. And I just learned to dominate the gym. So I love lifting weights, lifting heavy. And I've done that since I was 16. And that was the first, hard thing I mastered, but I don't remember a life without that. And I feel like if you work out in the gym, this to be true. Every workout is hard. Like it doesn't get easier per se, to go in and crush a workout. You just get used to it. You're that muscle is just strong. That do hard thing muscle is just strong. So I don't really remember being 15 before I started working out and not doing hard things. I just think that it's kind of become part of my world. And now I'm just like looking for more hard things to do all the time. But if we're not doing hard things, we're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of people who are not growing and they're okay with that. That's everyone's own choice to make in life. But I think that we all have a calling on our lives to grow. And in order to grow, we have to do hard things.
Yeah. If you're not doing hard things, you're standing still, you're stagnant, you're staying where you are, you're stuck, you're surviving. And that's where a lot of my moms are, is they're in this place of motherhood where they feel like they can't grow and get out of where they are. But really, it just takes a step of doing something hard. And that literal step could mean hopping on a chat with me and saying, I'm stressed out. Can you help me with this? That little step could mean opening your Bible for the day, taking that time to spend with God when you don't feel like you have it. Like the little baby step of doing the hard thing looks different for different people at different seasons. Just like going in the gym for the first time, picking up a 10-pound weight is going to feel hard. And now it's, okay, that's really easy. I've been to the gym for so many times. Like I need to lift heavier. When you started, I think more recently, cold plunging in the morning, and I've heard you say this, whether it was in person or on your Instagram, but you said, starting the day cold plunging, now I feel like I can take on the rest of the day with ease. Like, it's like, what other hard thing is going to come at me today? Like, it changes your mental capacity for the day. Would you agree? I mean, you said that, so I'm sure you agree.
Well, I think there's two sides to that. So one thing that cold plunging did is it transformed my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And when your nervous system is dysregulated, everything feels hard.
Yeah. Cold
plunging physically transformed something in my body where things didn't seem so hard because I wasn't so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like literally able to take on more hard things because my nervous system was regulated. So there's that component. I also do feel like there's this, I guess, understanding within me where I know what I did. I know I just went in, 40-degree water for 3 minutes. Like I can do anything. So yeah, it's also and you don't even have to like pump yourself up about it. You just know it. Like, no, I'm a boss.
Yeah, I got this. I got this day. I don't care what comes at me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You bring up the nervous system. And that's so true. When your nervous system's on overdrive, it can't take one more stress. And it might be something really small that you could take any other given day. But to you on that day, it's a full blown trigger. And you react in a lot of different ways, maybe physically, maybe just mentally. That reminded me when my husband's nervous system was in complete overdrive and we went to a hot baseball game. Now, the rest of us, we were drinking our Gatorades and our power waters and trying to stay hydrated. And we could have sat there in the sun and watched the game and survived. He could not. That temperature, he was about to faint, and we had to continually stand in front of a fan. He could not take that temperature because his system was already in overdrive. It couldn't take one more stressor. And we don't realize all that we're putting our bodies through internally, I don't think most days. But when you're in a somewhat healthy state and put yourself in a stressful situation, then your body learns how to adapt to this therapy, this hormesis, this hard therapy, and then it builds up the muscles to do harder things, quote unquote. Like it builds up your ways your body learns to adapt to stressful situations. And that's why it's really, really good when you're doing hard things like cold plunging or other things. And I know you would say this, to start really slow, to let your body learn how to adapt, not to go in for 10 minutes because your system might not be able to take that. And that actually could negatively affect you versus helping your body learn how to adapt to stress. We have to be aware of our holistic body and what's going on at our stress level in all the different areas: emotional stress, mental, physical, spiritual, what are we dealing with? Don't add a huge stressor at that time if you're already stressed out. And be mindful.
Yes, absolutely. I do coach quite a bit on that, especially for women, because our hormones can't take it.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of all the stressors in our life, even like toxic overload,
Yeah.
The stress of being, sick and our immunity being, working hard, those types of things. So low sleep, all of these things compounded can actually, and then you throw a cold plunge in there and you could actually, be doing worse for your body. So yeah, you have to, be mindful of all the stressors going on in your life at one time and honor your body.
Yeah. So you just brought up, in contrast, the benefits. So what are some benefits of cold plunging?
Yeah, sure. So we don't just cold plunge. Actually, Sweat House is a contrast therapy studio. So we focus on deliberate exposure to both heat and cold for physical and mental health benefits. So the benefits that I share are not just cold plunge benefits, but they're actual benefits that you would receive from doing the contrast, going from heat to cold, and potentially even back to heat and cold in one session. So physical benefits, things like improved immunity, improved sleep, weight loss actually helps your metabolism, joint inflammation, discomfort in the body, muscle recovery, improved performance, and then mental health benefits, things like energy, improved mood. I talked about my nervous system. It really my husband says it made me unbotherable. Mm-hmm. So just really helped me to de-stress. So there are tons of benefits, but those are the main ones that we see and that we focus on.
Yeah, I think it is a great way to mentally take on a small amount of stress in a short amount of time that's actually going to help your holistic body, like we talked about. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here a little bit. I want to bring this up because I talk so much about the mindset and our thoughts. And really for me, I have to contribute a lot of that to you. And so you have an amazing gift to see people pull out how God made them so special. And you do this for your kids constantly. I hear you do it. I know you do it. But you also do it for your friends. And we were friends when you could hear and see that I was lacking confidence in myself. And so you helped me change my thoughts, which was so connected to my identity and how I saw myself, not as a daughter of the king. I had so many insecurities and just a lack of confidence in who I was. I now, being that I have used your method so many times, adapted it as my own, and help and coach clients through this, I just want to touch on it. And first off, here on the podcast, thank you. I've told you that before, but thank you.
It's been my pleasure and my honor.
Yes. So it has changed my life, but also, like I said, it was connected to my identity. These negative thoughts I was having, this lack of confidence that you were seeing and hearing come out of my words. And it was affecting my work. It was affecting my actions, right? Thoughts, words, actions, results. It all stemmed back to my identity, who I saw myself as, and I did not know my kingdom identity. Why is knowing our kingdom identity so important, and how can we learn?
Yeah, identity is huge. Anytime I am fearful or doubtful in any way, I have come to recognize that I am temporarily disconnected from my identity. And I do think that we have some broad kingdom identities, but I think that really one thing that works for me is having an identity in each area of my life. Like I have an identity that God has given me for my work life, and I have an identity that God has given me as a mom and as a wife. And so when I'm in that moment with my children, or I'm in that moment with my spouse, or I'm, having a moment at work where I'm starting to doubt or feel fearful or whatever, anytime I'm feeling something that I know is not probably from God, it's just reminding myself of my identity, and it draws me right back into that. So it keeps us on task. It keeps us walking with God and on his path.
Yeah, it keeps us intentional and purposeful, right? Like we're living on purpose. If we're not pursuing something or living on purpose, then we're not understanding our kingdom identity. And it's not connected to all the different areas, like you said. So how can we learn more about our kingdom identity?
Prayer. Literally just asking God. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And trusting. I think it helps to have somebody walk you through it, because I think that we doubt ourselves when it comes to our ability to hear from God. All of us. It's like, was that God? Was that me? Maybe I'm making this up, And so I always think, when someone's in the beginning, early stages of learning how to connect their kingdom identity, it helps to pray with someone so that they can affirm you when you're like, I'm not sure if this is God, I had to do that, a couple different times with a couple different people. My favorite person for identity work is Jamie Winship. You can follow him on Instagram, but he wrote a book called Living Fearless. And I just read it for the third or fourth time, but it's all about finding your kingdom identity and just praying and asking God, like, what do you call me? And you said something that is true. A lot of us are walking in like a negative identity that may have attached itself to us because someone called us that, or maybe we called ourselves that, or whatever it might be. But there was also some quote unquote positive false identities that I was taking on. And that's where I think it starts to get a little confusing, because you're like, somebody could call me something good, but if it's not from God, then I can still be walking in an identity that's not me, that's not mine to have.
Absolutely. Yes. Love Jamie Winship. Look him up if you haven't heard of him. You said really just asking God and praying. And so in my Bold Blueprint course, this is why and program, we focus so much on identity. And I do pray with you. And we pray over your identity, having that confirmation that that was from God. That was, if we're in prayer and we're talking to our Father, He wants to talk back. He will be talking back. And so, so many times we doubt it. But once you start to learn how to hear His voice, that doubt diminishes and you have more confidence in, wow, I heard God say this, and I heard God said this, and He spoke to me through this word, this rhema. Like it just keeps coming once you learn. It's like learning anything. Once you learn, how to hear it, you're more confident. And so we go through that extensively because I think it's so important. I get that question all the time. How do you hear from God? I have a couple episodes on it, but like you said, I think it's really important to do it with someone else and to pray with someone else. And I love doing this with my kids too and praying with them. Did you hear God say anything? Did you see a picture of anything in your mind? Like, because kids can hear from God too, and we can teach them how to do it. So, but we have to learn how to do it first, and then we can transfer that to our kids and that faith. I love that you pointed it out in me. I think that's also really important, and that's why it's important to have accountability in your life and praying friends. I mean, when you told me, I cried, honestly. It kind of hurt. I was like, what? Well, how do I fix this? I don't know how to fix this. This is just how I am, which is a lie, an inner vow, that false agreement that I had been believing for most of my life was I was shy and which really was coming out as not being confident, but it wasn't true. It was all a lie based off this label of being shy and quiet and reserved and holding my voice. And you called it out at me and you said, you are not that. Then I took that to prayer, of course. And God said, yep, you're strong and courageous. And so it kind of goes on a little ripple effect. You know, I know that's just a gift of yours to see people like that. I think it's a true gift. But I also think there's so many times it's just encouragement, and we have these encouraging words and things in our heads, and we just don't say them to people. I think that's really cool. I love that you do that. I love that you encourage people with words. And like, how do you learn how to see people and call the life out, like words speak life? How do you speak life purposely?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever told you this, but the reason that I encourage people is because that identity was actually given to me. So going back to identity, this was when I was in sales with a previous company. I was not excelling and meeting the goals that I had for myself. And this was actually my first moment of understanding identity without knowing what it was. But I was bathing my child, I guess praying, but just maybe kind of like thinking about, I'm sure it was like the end of the month or something. And the goal was supposed to be met that day. And I was feeling stressed, and here I'm bathing my baby. And I'm like, gosh, why isn't this happening for me? Frustrated, whatever. And I didn't audibly hear God, but I heard these three kind of words in my spirit. And it was like, I never asked you. So the level, the goal that I was trying to meet that day, I remember it was something called Ruby. In my spirit, heard God say, I never called you Ruby. I told you to coach, connect, and encourage people. Mm-hmm. And I literally went and like grabbed a notebook. And suddenly I realized I am successful here, because I was chasing an identity that wasn't mine. And I was frustrated, defeated, down about the fact that I wasn't attaining this goal that God had never actually given me to begin with. And in that moment, I'm like, am I coaching people right now? Yes. Am I connecting with people right now? Yes. And am I encouraging people? Yes. So in God's eyes, in his kingdom, I am being successful, more successful than I, thought, right? Like, cause I'm doing all these things. I'm meeting the mark. I'm actually excelling at this goal. That's how I can encourage people, because God called me that. That's actually like the greatest example of what happens when you have an identity, is all of a sudden you realize that that's my job.
Yeah.
So when I'm in conversation with someone, I'm not trying to make a sale, push this or push that, or make a point. God called me a coach. He called me a connector, and he called me an encourager. So I know going into every conversation with every person that I talk to, it's probably going to be a coaching conversation, a connecting conversation, or an encouraging conversation. And that just flows because God told me to. That's the power of identity right there.
Oh my goodness. You have told me that before. I love that you shared it and brought that story up. Also, you can't see this, listeners, but I have this journal sitting right here on my desk that Zanna had given me 2 years ago, almost to the date, 3/11/23. And it was us praying through our identity. We were doing, it was in a group setting, and we were at a retreat for business, and we were praying, and it's what God says about me. we prayed through it. I wrote my things, which were spokesperson of peace, a believing leader, and a prayer warrior. Then she prayed over us as well that morning, and God gave her identity words for us, and she gave them to us. So she encouraged everyone in the room, but mine are so on point for what I am doing right now, for my career, what I'm doing right now, coaching, speaking, podcasting. Just listen to this list. Excited. I don't know how many times people tell me I am like so energetic and excited, consistent, sensitive to others, crafty, creative, imaginative, lover of Jesus, and intentional. And that is like what, if I could sum up like my program and like my message that I'm trying to get out on this podcast and through people, women that I coach, it's those things. That's the importance of knowing your identity and having praying friends and people that you trust speak that into you. They hear from God. They share it with you. I remember when we did that exercise, it was so powerful. And the fact that this journal is sitting right here on my desk. I mean, what is that? You even helped people, like you were talking about before, walk through that they couldn't hear God. They tried. They were sitting there in that prayer group and they were trying to pray and ask him for things and they weren't hearing anything. And so he walked through the next steps of what you do from there. So again, we go through all of this in my program, the guided identity prayer. So if you're just interested in knowing more about that, please message me. Links in the show notes for that. So cool. I just love that. And I love how you see others. And I love how you coach, encourage, and connect, because you do it in all areas of your life. And thank you for living in your identity.
Well, once you get one, you don't really have a choice, because you just feel disobedient if you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not,
exactly.
and you can't be fruitful. That's actually my word of the year is fruitfulness. And I think that that's actually why God is giving me a lot of identities right now, because, when you choose a word for the year, hopefully in prayer, and so God speaks this word for you, and then he gives you the plan for that word to take root in your life.
Yeah.
And, I didn't choose the word fruitful. It came through prayer. And so I don't have a plan of how I'm going to be more fruitful, but God starts to show you what his plan is for you to be more fruitful. And that's what happened. And I feel like he's just giving me more identities, because when you have identities, you are fruitful as long as you're walking in them. But the minute you stop walking in your identity, you stop being fruitful.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like I said, he gave me spokesperson of peace. That was before I started a podcast. He gave me the word spokesperson. And I was like, well, yeah, we all speak, like we all are, right, God? As a Christian, we're supposed to be your, and he's like, no, like Moses, like I need you to speak out. Then he brought podcasting into my life. All of a sudden I was on all these shows and I didn't even know anything about podcasting before that. So, and I had to follow that. It took me 18 months when I felt like I was being disobedient because I wasn't doing it, because he had told me. And I was like, okay, but I'm not comfortable with that. Okay. And I had to learn how to be comfortable, and I had to learn how to step out in courage and do it anyway.
A similar story with my 17-year-old. We have been calling him a man of few words for so long, because he doesn't say a lot of words. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
He doesn't say a lot of words. He became the announcer for his school. He's one of the announcers that announces games. And we will watch him on these announcements, and he's hilarious. And he has a word and a response for everything. And we're like, is this our kid? Like it's like a different personality. I realized like he's not a man of few words.
Yeah.
And I really felt like God was dropping into my spirit, stop saying that, because he's going to be a speaker of some sort. And so when you say he's a man of few words, that's actually not in agreement with my identity for him. And I don't think calling somebody shy or calling somebody a man of few words is a negative thing. It's not like someone's name calling you, right? But we just have to be careful the words that we speak over others or ourselves, because if God hasn't given us that identity for them, it can still be a false identity. Even if it's not a negative thing, it might just not be what God says about them.
Exactly. Yeah. Talk to God about your kids. Like, make sure you're also speaking their identity out over them, because that is so important. A lot of times they're not asking God, what do you call me all the time? But you can. And that happened to me with one in particular was having an issue. And I'm like, well, what do you call her, God? And he's like, you need to speak this over her. This is your job. You have to fight the lies that she's hearing by speaking this identity over her. So
identity exercises are actually so fun to do with kids because kids hear from God very easily. So I think it's worth it for parents to do an identity exercise with you. Anybody, right? Do an identity exercise for yourself so that you can do it for your kids.
I've learned a lot about how by 8, a kid's identity is formed. And I've realized now with my third, almost 8-year-old, how that plays out in the everyday family life. And it wasn't until I knew this, my husband's getting stressed about it. And I said, I know what this is. He's struggling with his identity.
Yeah.
This is coming out as actions of like crying and throwing a fit and saying crazy stuff. And I'm like, oh, he's struggling with his identity. And so when we can put those pieces together, it helps us as parents. It helps us know how to even discipline and correct and lead and guide our kids as we're supposed to be doing in the right ways. So I love that. We could talk about this a lot, but we've got to get going and honor your times. You can find Zanna on Instagram at Zanna Foley. Be sure to connect with her and learn about all the amazing wisdom that she has to share about holistic wellness.
Thanks, Shan.
All right. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Hey, Wellness Warrior. I pray that blessed you. And if so, it would bless me big if you would write a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Not only would this make me super happy, but it will allow for others to find this show too. Also, I love to chat over on Instagram, so make sure to take a screenshot, share to your Instagram stories, and tag me at @TheShanWright so I can see it and we can keep chatting and bring other moms to chat with us. Until we get to chat again, mama friend, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace.